ladies. So I am back today, and if you are here live, tell me that you're here. Let me know. If you're watching the replay, hit replay. I wanted to go over a couple of myths. I know last week I started talking about this, and today I want to be going over 3 myths about wealth, about poverty and prosperity. So the first one, hi Tyra, that you may have heard is that, being poor is spiritual. So I just want to ask, if being poor is spiritual, why does the Bible tell us to give to the poor? Wouldn't that just ruin their spirituality? So one of the poorest ways to help the poor is to be poor, right? And God has called each of us to be stewards of our money. Everything in the kingdom that gets stewarded multiplies and increases. And so just another revelation, if you're going to steward money, you're going to need to have some money to steward. And so we're taught to pray, your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And there's no poverty in heaven. He talks about the sidewalks being lined with gold and just riches upon riches, things we cannot even imagine. Graham Cook actually says this: God has abundance and the enemy has a budget. So I am a Dave Ramsey certified master financial coach. I think he teaches a lot of good things. I think there's a time and a place for a budget, but I also feel like there's a little bit of poverty spirit in that as well. God also says that a good man is one who leaves an inheritance to his children's children. So you have to be building up. You have got to be stewarding and multiplying what he's given you here on earth if you're going to leave a legacy for your grandchildren, right? So there were people in the Bible that were directly blessed by God. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph. The list goes on. So one thing I do want to say though, because I get this question sometimes, is how much is too much money? And this is something that is different for every single person. The amount of money that is too much money is whatever amount that replaces your trust in God. So I just want to repeat that again. Whatever money that is too much money is whatever amount that replaces your trust in God. So for someone that might be 100, they're like, I got this. For others, it might be 1,000,000. We just, no matter how much we have, we always want to be relying on Him, looking to Him, asking Him direction, on how I'm doing, on stewarding it well, looking to His face and just being obedient to what He's telling us to do with it. So loving God doesn't mean that you have to be broke. And having money doesn't necessarily mean that you're godly and blessed either. So again, I keep saying this, but money is just a way to make things happen. It's really just a tool. It's a means of providing for our family and a means to enjoy some of the goodness of God too. Did you know there are actually 3 tithes in ancient Israel? One of them actually had kind of a party feel to it. They put on a festival to celebrate God's goodness. He said, drink the best drink and eat the best meat. This was actually commanded to be part of the tithe. Hi, Gail. And part of the stewardship is multiplying that. So that's also going to be blessing and meeting the needs of other people. So again, money is just a tool. You can think of it like a shovel. You can use it to accomplish good work. So 2 Corinthians chapter 9 verse 8 talks about giving. And the only topic covered is money. This is what it says. God is able to make all grace abound to you, so that having all sufficiency in all things, in all times, you may abound in every good work. Okay, so prosperity is having more than enough, so that you can abound in every good work. He's not saying, I'm going to give you just enough, And what I really believe that means is that Jesus paid a price. And he wants you to be at the financial point where if there's a need, again, I talked about this before, but if there's a need that crosses your path and your heart is moved to meet that need, that you have the means to meet it. And so this is going to be a big one. One of the biggest problems that I feel like people immediately think of when I'm teaching about this is that prosperity, money, wealth, riches, whatever it is selfish, right? Like, who here believes that? I did for a very long time. But prosperity is not selfish because it's really not all about you. Real prosperity is defined by how much we give away, not by how much we keep for ourselves. Prosperity is about being a blessing and not just possessing. So one of my mentors, Jim Baker, love this guy. He says it's actually selfish for you to not desire prosperity. In one of his books he wrote, well, Jim, I just want enough to provide for me and my family. This is how he responds when he gets that phrase. You religious, selfish pig. Here's what you're saying. I've got all of my needs met. Who cares about the rest of the world? Isn't that amazing? Like, I just feel like he flipped that for me. And that just there was something in my brain. Yes, Gail loves Jim Baker too. He's the best. And Tyra's saying, my pastor says, how can you help the poor if you're poor? I know, you can't. I remember wanting to go on mission trips and sponsor children through Compassion International when I was a single mom. And, beyond tithing, I just couldn't do it at that time. And, if you can't pay for your own groceries, how are you supposed to spread the gospel and, do things for the poor across the world? So anyways, I hope you guys got a kick out of what Jim Baker was saying there. Another quote I love, Margaret Thatcher said, no one would have remembered the Good Samaritan if he'd only had good intentions. He had money as well. So prosperity is about having more than enough, not just for yourself, but so that you can be a blessing to other people as well. That's why it's not selfish to want prosperity when you have a heart that wants to help. Yes, if you want, if your desire is to have money and hold on to it and hoard it and never help another person, that's not what it's all about. That's not what God is saying for us to do as Christians. So we're not talking about buying happiness here. That's really not what it's about. But you can help build churches and hospitals and dig wells when you actually have money, leaving an inheritance to your children and your children's children, like we talked about, so they don't have to start at ground zero. So it should be obvious that you can't go into all the world and disciple other nations when you can't even afford to go to the grocery store. So hopefully I've dispelled a little bit about, people saying it's selfish to want money. The third one that I sometimes get is, well, but Jesus was poor. Shouldn't we all be like him? And the first thing I just want to point out is that the wise men actually brought him incredibly wealthy gifts. It says, expensive trunks. It's not just one thing. It says, Matthew 2:11 says they opened their treasure chests and gave him gifts of gold and frankincense and myrrh. And the footnote that I love in the Passion Translation says these wise men were extremely wealthy. They presented gifts that totaled a great sum of money, not tiny presents wrapped with bows, but treasure chests full of financial wealth. And Jesus was so successful as a businessman that he was actually known as the carpenter of Nazareth. He also had his own treasure. So you have to have treasure in order to have your own treasure, right? You can't be walking around guarding an empty sack, You actually have to have something in there. And we also know that he was, an outrageous giver. So, This is another funny thing that I picked up somewhere. But we know that Jesus also supported 12 teenage boys for 3 years in ministry, and we all know how much they eat. Perhaps that's one of the greatest miracles of all, right? So we know Jesus had money, and we know he lived a very prosperous lifestyle. We know he had no financial debt. He had more than enough to fulfill every divine assignment from God, and enough money left over to help others fulfill theirs. And that's really how we should view ours too. So when Jesus died on the cross, he paid for our financial provision in the same way that he paid for our forgiveness of sins. This is something that I don't think hardly anyone talks about or thinks about even. He would no rather have you more in poverty than he would have you in adultery. He paid for them both. So 2 Corinthians chapter 8, verses 8 and 9 are 2 chapters talking about giving and finances. And it says, "For you know the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, that though he was rich, yet for your sake he became poor, so that by his poverty might become right." So this is, I think, where people get confused about poverty and Jesus being poor. But he only became poor once in his life, and that was for the 3 hours that he was on the cross. He was stripped naked, he was crucified for all of us, and he became poor so that we become rich. So, he became poor so we became rich in every single way. And there's another way of saying it, that Jesus got what you and I deserved so that we could get what he deserved, and that's grace. And there's nothing we can do to earn that. And that's where I just want to bring so much, just break the chains for you guys about what it is that he truly wants because of what he did for us. That's why I don't want anyone to stay wrapped up in these loops, these lies that we keep believing about the abundance that he wants for us. So Paul, a few paragraphs later, also again in 2 Corinthians 9 verse 11, he says, "You will be made rich in every way. Then you can always give freely." Another translation says, "You will always be rich enough to be generous at all times." And isn't that what we want? He's saying that he paid for our abundant provision, that he paid for the provision and prosperity of our finances so that we could have more than enough to do all that he wants us to do, to accomplish every divine assignment that he has, and enough left over to help others too. So, just want to end with this. The Bible says in several places that Jesus came to set us free. So let me ask you a serious question, like how free are you as a believer if you're not financially free? So for me, when I was a single mom living in a home that was in foreclosure, living off of my savings that were dwindling every single month, I certainly did not feel free. And I really feel like that stress, the pain, the more that I wanted for my kids, that was what God wanted for us too. He doesn't want us to feel the weight of that, and he paid such a great price. So hopefully that helps you guys. I'm willing to go over, if you have more myths, just write them in. I'm going to be starting to talk a lot more. I talk so much about money because I love it. I am so, it cursed me for so long, but I also want to be talking more about what I'm actually doing in my coaching programs. So if you don't know, what I'm working on is a 90-day program. I help coaches or just women who have dreams in their hearts really get their coaching programs up, running, and making money in 90 days or less. So again, some of that is mindset, But we also go into strategies as well. You are going to be learning how to identify your niche, something that's profitable, that is going to, not launch to crickets, because I've done that too. So, but put together your signature system, your package, how to price it, and how to complete sales with complete integrity and feeling really confident about it, as well as understanding the wealth systems that need to go into a sustainable and profitable business. So if that's something that God has ever placed in your heart, reach out to me. This is what I love to do and would love to help you guys too. So hopefully that helps. Any more mindset questions, let me know. But just let me know if you had any ahas or anything else I can help you with. Love you guys. Talk to you later. Bye.